Hello and welcome to Empire State of Cannabis, New York's home for reefer madness. We'll bring you the experts, activists, policymakers, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers at the front of everything. I'm your host, Kalen Castetter. Thank you for tuning in. We have a great show for you today. Welcome. We have the co-owner of JD Farms, founder of Eaton Hemp, and first hemp farmer in New York State, Dan Dolgin. Thanks for coming on, Dan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kayla.
Absolutely. So, Eaton Hemp, what is an Eaton Hemp Super Square? What does it look like, and what does it taste like?
uh, well, that is a great question. A super square is a baked granola crisp. Um, so think of kind of a granola bar, but into bite-sized little chunks. And it's packed full of organic fruits and other kind of ingredients like chia seeds and things like that. And we have three flavors: a cashew, coconut, mango, a walnut, apple, cinnamon, and a chocolate sea salt.
Oh,
So vegan chocolate, I should say. And
okay.
yeah, they're sort of little crunchy bites of delicious, nutty hemp seeds.
Which one is your favorite out of the three?
Depends on which mood I'm in, but I think I prefer, anything chocolate related. So the dark chocolate sea salt is definitely what I grab to most.
And so the whole product is vegan, not just the chocolate.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the point. So it's a healthy snack alternative, and so the hemp seed is really powering the nutrition there.
Yeah, so we wanted to make everything kind of hemp forward. What we found in kind of tasting the hemp seeds are that surprisingly, and most people don't realize how delicious they actually are.
Hmm.
They're nutty and buttery and full of flavor. And so we wanted to make sure that hemp was the first ingredient listed. If for anyone listening, when you look at the back of pack, the ingredients are basically listed in order of what's the most dominant ingredient. So we wanted to make sure hemp was front and center, and
Hmm.
that you could really taste and feel the crack and the pop of the hemp seed itself.
Excellent. So where could you buy it?
You can buy it. We're doing mostly online right now,
Hmm.
direct to consumer on our website, eatonhemp.com. That's EATONHEMP. We will have our Amazon store up and running shortly, and actually, I think you can now get it on Amazon. So that should work. And otherwise, we're in select Whole Foods and natural grocers around the New York State tri-state area.
Beautiful, beautiful. So going back, so you're working in DC in national security, possibly a spy. You don't need to confirm and deny that for us. And then you decide to buy a farm in Madison County. What's up with that? What's the story there?
Yes, it's not the usual path, but let's see. So yeah, I was working in the intelligence community doing counterterrorism for most of my career. I joined government in 2006, and I left in about 2011. Just kind of got a little tired of the Beltway and wanted to do some things in the private sector, and had a good offer for a gig up in New York City to do some consulting. And so I took that. I moved up to New York, which is where I'm from, and was doing some national security and international type of consulting projects. And then I was asked around 2014, 15 to be the chief security officer for a company that was trying to win a license for medical marijuana license for what, bid for one of the medical marijuana licenses. And so I thought that was super interesting. A big proponent of cannabis, and believe wholeheartedly in its benefits, and thought it was an interesting opportunity. So I said yes. We did not win a license, which potentially
Hmm.
could have been seen as fortunate because the program at the time was pretty narrow banded. But through that, I had the good fortune of meeting my now business partner, Mark Just, who had bought a farm in 2008, transitioned it to an organic working farm. It was a defunct dairy farm at the time he bought it. and he was going to have the grow for the medical marijuana on his property. And so I got to know him well through that project, and we really enjoyed working together. And when we didn't get the license, we decided we wanted to do something. And he had an interest in hemp initially as an organic cover crop, because obviously you can't use chemicals or any kind of pesticides or herbicides in an organic farm, and you need cover crops that are fast growing with broad leaves, and hemp kind of fits
Hmm.
that bill. And he asked if I could use my government experience to try and help him navigate the regulations and get a license. I started working on it with him and coming up to the farm more and more. And he was kind of looking for a partner to help kind of take advantage of all these different opportunities, and kind of like an intellectual sparring partner up here to really bounce ideas off of. I knew very little about farming, but I thought it was one of those things when life kind of throws something at you and it seems interesting enough, you got to just kind of take a chance and ride with it. That's part of the fun of the journey. So
Yeah.
I, uh, I bought the farm, so to speak, and we've been partners, ever since 2015.
Beautiful. So before Eaton Hemp, though, you have JD Farms, which is a highly successful organic operation, right?
Yeah, so the farm itself, which is the base of our operations, is JD Farms,
Mm.
and we do hemp is one of many things that we do. A pretty diversified agricultural operation where we raise pastured cattle. We just actually got into the grass-fed organic dairy business as one of the largest producers for Maple Hill. Our pastured cattle go to Fleischers, which are butchers in the New York City area, and which we are minority owners of. And then we have a big organic hay operation as well.
Excellent. Yeah, so that's awesome. So before, so you guys kind of stumbled into hemp, like you said, you're looking for a cover crop, yeah, broadleaf plant, and then it's 2015, right? The state's looking for some members of their new pilot program that they're rolling out, and so was it your experience of trying to go after a medical cannabis license that now you're like, okay, hemp's an opportunity, or is it really driven from the agricultural side looking for a new cover crop, or is it a mix of both?
It's both. I think we knew that hemp, was a big opportunity. We looked around at what was happening in Canada, where they were at the time planting, I think, about 100,000 acres, and we saw, okay, if 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 anything, it's a good cover crop. That's the least of what we could use it for.
Mm.
But we also knew that there was just tons of uses for hemp. Now the markets weren't all really there, and we felt if we can get in early, that this could be a really interesting opportunity. And hemp is such a you know a viable and really versatile plant that you could use the leaves, you can use the seeds, the stalks, the flower, and we thought, well, we could find some use beyond just a cover crop. And so that
Hmm.
was what really was exciting for us. We're
Excellent.
entrepreneurs at heart, and we really see the farm as kind of a blank canvas to really kind of launch a lot of different types of businesses.
Yeah, to some pretty good success too. So, vaulting the farm and you guys into fame. Here's a New York Times article in 2016 titled "You Need an Armed Guard to Plant These Seeds." Right? I mean, we know that they're coming at us from the perspective. You need the DEA permit, and the DEA wanting to make sure the seeds are actually being planted, and the DEA has always tried to exert their authority over hemp, right? But even beyond that, how hard was it really to get that first crop in the ground and be successful with it?
Yeah, I mean, the first iteration of the license was a little more prohibitive than even the federal regulations. It actually prohibited farmers from bringing their crops to market, and it
Hmm.
also mandated that you had to partner with a research institution. So that was the first hurdle, was really to help the New York Assembly and the governor's office understand that. no farmer is going to put crop in the ground if they have to burn it literally in the field after, after it reaches kind of maturity. And so I think, this is what happens sometimes when non-farmers kind of legislate, farming regulations and don't really think about the potential ramifications, or if anybody will even, want to participate in what's supposed to be a pilot program to prove a market. So the assembly and Donna Lepardo, who we affectionately call as the Hemperor,
Mm.
understood the dilemma and set out to really help change legislation, and we helped work with her on rewriting that. But since that wasn't a guarantee it would pass that first year, there weren't any real applicants, and we decided we would take the chance and kind of cross our fingers and hope that the governor would sign a bill that would allow us to actually harvest the crop and put it to use. So that was the kind of first hurdle, was getting legislation that we thought could help us bring crops to market. Then there was the applying for a license and finding a research partner. Thankfully, we had a really progressive partner in SUNY Morrisville that was
Hmm.
very excited and forward thinking about cannabis, and they signed on and said this was great, and became our partner. And then we applied for a license and got the first license, as you alluded to before, in New York. And then the hardest part was actually getting a DEA permit, because hemp was at the time still considered a Schedule One narcotic, and to get hemp seeds for planting across the border, you had to have DEA permission. And so, we had to deal with all levels of DEA, from local, state to the federal kind of headquarters, and getting them understanding what we were doing. And we had federal agents come to the farm and inspect the planters and inspect where we were storing the crop. I mean, they were treating it as if this was, a a drug, which I guess it was classified as at the time. But we all know that hemp is innocuous and has, basically no discernible amount of THC. So what they did was they mandated that we had a armed guard present when we were planting, which was, a little over the top, if I may say. And
Yeah.
we yeah, so that's kind of what we did. They wanted to make sure no seed went uncounted for. So the New York Times obviously thought that was a great story, and came up and documented it. So it was quite interesting.
That's great. Yeah. And you talk about, Morrisville being progressive. They now have a cannabis major tract, and they're training, the New York State cannabis workforce of the future. So, they've continued to be aggressive and progressive with it, led by Professor Gilbert Jenkins there. Um, so, what did you do with the harvest of that first crop, the seed that you combined?
Yeah, so when we were growing it in the field, we didn't really know what hemp seeds taste like. I know everyone probably knows hemp hearts, which are the dehulled seeds, but the seeds themselves have a crunchy outer layer, like any kind of seed, a sunflower, or any chia or whatnot. And so when we started to get closer to harvest, and we didn't really know exactly what we were going to do, like I said before, we knew there was opportunity in various components of the crop. But when we tasted the seed itself, we kind of had the aha moment that this
Hmm.
really tastes good. And we decided we would combine the plant and harvest the seed itself, and we would start going into kind of production of a natural food company. And we saw what was happening in the industry, where a lot of these natural food companies were having great success, and we thought we could be early adopters of hemp seeds and really become a national brand of record for the organic hemp market.
Which resulted in the Eaton Hemp Super Squares that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. So that was really the catalyst, right? Walk us through, what is that development process from going, okay, I've got a ton of seed here, literally tons of seed. I want to put this into a product that can sit on the shelves of Whole Foods, right? And then I can sell to the consumer. So what did that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's that's the thing that we were kind of flying blind with, and we didn't know ourselves, right? We
Mhm.
said, okay, we'll figure it out. A lot of what we do here is, we have an idea, we think we can we can find, if we can't figure it out ourselves, we can bring smart folks in who can do this with us. And that's when our third co-founder, Brian D'Alessandro, who has a background in branding and marketing, mostly in the kind of natural food and kind of health and wellness channels. He was really excited about what we were doing, and we brought him in to kind of help us lead the way. And what we learned along the way is it's very hard to develop products, to get them produced, to get packaging, to get branding, and then to get distribution and get retailers to take them in store. The first step is finding a good formulated product, and it probably took us 2.5 years from harvest that first year to get products that we were really excited about and have a co-packer that was certified with all the bells and whistles that we had, which was organic, gluten-free, vegan, non-GMO, which is hard to find, and get them to understand how to make the product, and then getting the packaging produced, and taking this into meetings with buyers from Whole Foods and Fairway and a lot of the kind of local New York City markets. And it's every step of the way is challenging. The natural food industry is not for the faint of heart. It takes a long time, but if you can break through and get above the clouds, there's an interesting opportunity there.
Yeah, so I think we see a lot of times is you look at something like hemp and the nutritional value of the hemp seed, is incredible, right?
Hmm.
Or the extract, the medicinal values of CBD and extracts are incredible. But there's this thinking, I think, of a lot of producers that this is great, therefore it will sell, right? So
Mm.
we when we work with brands and we talk all the time, who's your customer? So did you find a lot of appetite in the natural products industry with customers for a new product like this?
It's interesting, and there's sort of 2 points to make here. Is one, when we met with Whole Foods, what they really liked about us is that we were farmer owned, and we had what they described as something beyond the bag.
Hmm.
They said, look, we get people coming in all the time, and they say, we have a great food, we have a great product, it tastes great. I'm sure, and they say, well, I'm sure you do. You're not coming in here if you don't think your product tastes great. But what they know it sells is if you could market something that has a touch point that people can kind of grab onto. And for us, that was the farm itself. And they were really excited by that. And they took us in almost immediately, into a kind of a test run in a few stores in the city. So that's, the first aspect of, I think, what people should consider when they're kind of doing a natural food product. For us, the hemp side of things, and as you said, hemp is, I think, one of the most complete proteins on the planet. And it's got, the hemp seed oil is the only vegan alternative to fish oil. It's super high in fiber and protein and all the good stuff people are looking for. But dot dot dot, the word hemp is still have somewhat of a negative connotation. And for us, we didn't realize how much we'd have to educate the consumer that A, hemp is not pot,
Hmm.
B, hemp actually is food, and C, it's good food. It's flavorful, and it can be made into a value added product that's delicious. So those three things have been kind of the hurdles that we've had to overcome as we've made our way through the business.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people, they're looking at it's 2020, right? Hemp is hot, it's all the rage. But even 3 4 years ago, and we went through this with the hemp infused wine, it consumer education was not there, right? I mean, we've seen a rapid progression in the amount of people who know what hemp is, at least a basic understanding that it is not marijuana. It will not get you high, right? And so, I think that's something that kind of passes over a lot of the new entrants into the marketplace, is how how difficult consumer education was for years. I mean, you go back to Richard Rose with hemp nut in the early 90s, and
Sure.
my own father with hemp infused wine 97. I mean, that was a whole different ballgame, right? I mean, the
Sure. Yeah.
challenges that we had educating consumers is nothing, compared to them. But yeah, I do want to hit that, you said you need to have a story behind the brand, right? Just because you put something out there doesn't necessarily mean it will stick, right? And so, what have you done to really cultivate that story?
Well, we do things like this. We try and get into the public sphere as much as possible. Our website tells the story both verbally, and we also have video production and things like that. We want people to trace the food back to the fields where they were grown, and so anything we can do to document that, we do. We try and we I'm not a big believer in kind of PR firms and things like that. We try and market ourselves wherever we can, and even on the packaging itself, the way it was branded. If you look at the design, kind of has that feel of bringing it back to the farm, but it's kind of a modern take on that. So it's a challenge to get your voice out there, and I don't know if you want to go into the whole Facebook, Instagram ban, but
Yeah,
that's been the biggest challenge is
yeah.
the avenues that one would normally use to get their story out have been closed off to folks in the hemp industry, and that's really frustrating, and that's kind of why we're in this stalemate, and why education of the consumer has been really challenging.
Yeah, I mean, you could either spend a ton of money. You usually have these options when you develop a brand. You can either go organically, you can, use social media, hope it catches on, or you can spend a lot of money. You don't really have that option in hemp because where are you going to spend that money?
That's right.
Traditional
That's right.
advertising channels aren't there, right? And so the most expensive advertising channels, when you talk about TV, that might be there, but not necessarily. Depends on the network, right?
Yeah, and we believe in the human touch, which
Hmm.
and the interesting thing is when we do demos, our product sells out, and people are a little hesitant, but usually we can convince them to take a bite, and then it's really amazing to watch their eyes just kind of light up, and the first thing they say is, "Wow, I didn't know that it could taste like this." And then they ask all the standard questions. "Oh, can this get you high? Oh, I heard, or does this have CBD? I heard this has, this, that, and the other." And you have to kind of dispel a lot of myths, but you're doing a one-to-one approach, and what we're missing is this one-to-many, which is what these now kind of large global marketplaces provide, but we can't access that because for right now, and I think that will change, they have a ban against anything hemp related being marketed on their platform.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, and hopefully, efforts that you're making, that on the national level, on the state level, start to break through. So, on a personal note, the podcast is about New York and how special and unique the New York hemp industry is, and I think you kind of personify it. Last week we spoke to Brittany Carbone,
Mhm.
and she spoke about moving from Long Island up to Tioga County in upstate, and so you split time, right? You split time between Manhattan and the farm in Eaton, New York. What's that like?
Yeah, it's been really great. I have to say, and when I tell people about it, they get, incredibly jealous, which I don't mind. I'm glad that I'm living a life that people, are striving for, and I think having that downstate upstate connection and being able to kind of traverse that at will has been, really a positive in my life, to be able to see a side of New York that I never grew up with. I, like Brittany, I grew up in Long Island. I grew up in a urban suburban area. I went to NYU. I really was kind of born and raised in a city environment. And yeah, everyone has sort of done their little travels upstate, but when you really immerse yourself in these communities, you learn how special they are, and you learn where your food comes from.
Hmm.
We're in the middle of Madison County, and we're surrounded by farms where all of this agriculture, in the dairy and the produce and the meat, most of that gets transported downstate, and people who buy them have no idea who is growing them, and kind of the personalities are up here, and people who are you know third, fourth, fifth generation farmers who will know more about agriculture than I could ever, imagine, or anyone could potentially read in any sort of book. I mean, you could read a book like Omnivore's Dilemma, which will give you a taste of what farming is and what kind of agriculture is about. But until you experience it, it's really hard to really put in writing or really describe.
Yeah, I think as we begin and as we continue to tell these stories of the entrepreneurs and the leaders in the cannabis industry here on Empire State of Cannabis, we're going to find that cannabis is bringing together parts of the state nothing else really has been able to do, and I think that's going to continue to be a theme in New York, and part of what makes it so unique. So for those listening, they're looking at you. You're a pioneer in the industry. Many have followed you, right, in going to grow hemp, and some with a lot less success, right? And they're
Mhm.
sitting here right now and they're thinking, did I make the right move? And how do I become successful in hemp? What would you tell them?
I think, contrary to to our story where we said we didn't really have much of a plan, I
Hmm.
think you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
I think we knew in the beginning. We have a saying that a farm can survive small mistakes, not big ones. So that first year, I mean, we have about 2,500, 3,000 acres right now that we farm, but we put 30 acres in that first year. And the
Hmm.
most we do in hemp is about 50 to 100 acres, depending on, how much we need to harvest that year. So what I would say is, don't put a seed in the ground if you don't know where it's going to go after you harvest it. And I think that's the mistake that potentially some folks have made, which is they think that hemp is this great crop. It's really valuable. I'm hearing a lot about it. The CBD industry is exploding. So I'll just plant it. And of course, someone's going to come knocking on my door and they're going to pay me millions of dollars for, 30, 40 acres of CBD. It's not the case. You really need to know the market, and you need to be, as I said earlier, entrepreneurial about it. So it's a difficult industry. It's not without its challenges, even though it is, as we've talked about, and I know we both believe, a huge opportunity, and a huge opportunity for the country to really, have alternatives to monocropping, provide new kinds of food and medicine, and the industrial side, which we didn't even touch on. But
Hmm.
there's so many different opportunities. But the one thing I always tell people is, yeah, there are 30,000 uses for hemp that people have documented, but there's not 30,000 markets. And in some
Yeah.
instances, you have to create that market. So you either have to be entrepreneurial, where you're owning the whole vertically integrated supply chain up until the branded product that you're bringing to the consumer, or you're selling it to somebody who's going to brand it and bring it to market.
Yeah, and find your niche and find your talent there, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, what's next for Eaton Hemp, JD Farms, Secret Agent Dolgin? What's the next thing we should look out for?
Well, we are producing our organic hemp hearts, which we know people have already probably tried, and probably have in their pantry. And we thought, initially, we were not going to do hearts. We wanted to do some more value-added products that people maybe didn't know, but we realized that, hearts are what people like, and we kind of laughingly call it the gateway drug. It's the thing that people know, they've tried, they put it in their yogurt, and then hopefully that brings them to try other hemp related products. So that's a big thing for us. And then, we're doing some CBD ourselves, and we are really excited about pre-rolled smokable flower. I think, the bioavailability of inhaling CBD is really exciting and interesting. And
Hmm.
then, we're doing breeding, which, we thankfully and luckily partnered with you on, and produced
Yep.
close to 1 million seeds of one of the first USDA organic CBD seed programs. And we think that that's something we can continue working on and looking at next generation genetics and the CBG and CBN and all the cannabinoids and terpenes that have yet to be discovered. So there's so much out there. It's almost actually one other thing that we're really excited about too is mulch and animal pet bedding, which is
Huh.
a really great use for the fiber, and using it for erosion control because it's 3 times more absorbent. So we're talking with New York State about how to start investing in the fiber industry here and putting it to good use. So hopefully that will be another channel that farmers could take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been so grateful to be able to work with you guys. So, support you guys, eatonhemp.com, Facebook, Instagram, Whole Foods, wherever, you can find Eaton Hemp Super Squares or the whole seed, right?
Yep.
Any other place where people can find you?
Well, Amazon, like I said earlier, with the squares and our organic hearts will be up in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And yeah, those are the main places. I think you hit it all. So really appreciate the opportunity to get the word out.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thank you for coming on. Best of luck, and we hope to have you on again sometime soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Galen. Appreciate it.
Yeah.